Okay, so you sent us a bunch of articles all about companies making everyone go back to the office and, well, you want to know what's really going on, right?
Mhm.
What are these companies actually thinking?
Well, yeah, it is a hot topic for sure. You're right to want to dig into it.
There's a lot of buzz about this Forbes piece by Tomas Chamorro, Pre-Music.
Oh, yeah, he really lays out all the reasons companies are giving for this big push to get everyone back in the office. 10 of them, actually.
10. Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, but the thing is, when you really get into it, it's like, are these really good reasons or are they more about, control, tradition, old habits dying hard?
Okay, so let's break this down. The first few kind of have that Big Brother's watching feel, don't they? Like that whole it's easier to monitor input than output thing.
Exactly. It's way simpler for some managers to just see someone sitting at their desk than to actually, measure what they're accomplishing.
So you're saying for those kinds of managers, FaceTime is more important than the actual results.
That's what it seems like, right? And if that's how your manager thinks,
Yeah.
well, think about what that means for you getting recognized, getting ahead, even if you're getting way more done working remotely.
Yikes. And isn't this where that whole proximity bias thing comes in?
Oh, absolutely.
The idea that the people who are physically closer to the manager, they just naturally get favored.
Even if they're not the top performers, yeah.
So not exactly a level playing field then?
Not really, no.
Yeah.
It's almost like it becomes less about, the quality of your work and more about just how visible you are, how much you're schmoozing.
That's the worst. And then there's this whole idea of filtering for ultra loyal employees. It's like going back to the office is some kind of test.
It's a pretty cynical way to look at it, for sure.
If you comply, you're dedicated, you're in the in crowd. If you don't, well, you must not be committed enough, right?
Yeah. And that's not just cynical, it's risky, right? You're going to end up pushing away a lot of great talent, people who value things like flexibility, having control over their own time.
So basically saying, we don't care about results, we just care about your butt being in that chair.
Pretty much, yeah.
Okay, if a company's resorting to tactics like that, it makes you wonder about the people in charge, doesn't it?
It really does.
Another one of those reasons in the article, reinforcing that traditional hierarchy. You know, the boss wants everyone under their thumb,
Oh, yeah, that old command and control mindset.
which seems pretty outdated, doesn't it?
Totally. I mean, McKinsey did all this research that showed those kind of rigid organizations, they're the ones who are struggling the most to keep up.
So, if you're someone who likes to work collaboratively, you value flexibility, that's a huge red flag, isn't it?
Huge. Yep. And think about it. You've got choices. Find a company that gets it, that values what you value.
Let's move on to some of those reasons that are, well, let's say, maybe a little more stuck in the past.
Okay, I'm listening.
Like bringing everyone back to the office is going to magically reignite energy and morale. Like everyone's just been sitting at home, miserable, just waiting to get back to that water cooler.
Yeah, I don't think that's how it works.
Right. Forcing people back when they don't want to be there, that's going to cause more resentment, not less.
It just doesn't make sense. All the research shows that when people have a choice, they're happier and more productive.
Exactly. Like Buffer's State of Remote Work report.
Yep. All that data points to the same thing. Flexibility equals happier, more engaged employees.
So if you're feeling pressured to go back, but you've been doing great remotely, hybrid, whatever, don't be afraid to speak up.
Right. Back it up with data.
Um,
Show them how well you've been doing.
okay, here's another one that seems like clinging to the past.
Yeah.
Undoing forced change. These are companies that just got dragged into the 21st century kicking and screaming because of the pandemic.
And now they're like, okay, back to normal, everyone. Back in your cages.
What a missed opportunity.
I know, right? Instead of learning from what actually worked, adapting, they just want to rewind.
So if that's your company, might be time to think about whether their vision for the future matches yours.
Seriously. And think about how you can make the case for why flexibility makes the whole company stronger, not weaker.
All right, let's get real for a second. There are a couple of reasons that seem, well, driven by the bottom line. Money talks, right?
Let's hear them.
Justifying office costs. Companies spend all this money on fancy offices and they're like, we got to use them.
The classic sunk cost fallacy.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you spend a ton doesn't mean you have to keep throwing good money after bad.
Makes you wonder, what's more important to them? Their fancy office space or their employees' well-being and productivity?
Right, and think about it. All these reports, like the one from CBRE, are showing that office vacancy rates are going up.
So maybe they're starting to realize those expensive leases weren't such a great idea after all.
Maybe. Okay, ready for a really cynical one?
Hit me.
Encouraging voluntary quits.
Ooh, that's rough.
Basically, they're making things less flexible on purpose, hoping to push people out, saves on severance, layoffs, all that.
Wow, that's cold.
Yeah, it's all about cutting costs in the short term. Problem is, the National Bureau of Economic Research found that this backfires big time.
How so?
You end up losing your best people. The ones with options, they're the first ones to leave.
So you think you're saving money, but you're actually shooting yourself in the foot.
Exactly. It shows a real lack of understanding about what motivates people, what makes them want to stay.
Okay, let's get into a reason that's more about tradition than anything else. Absorbing organizational culture. Hanging out at the office, osmosis, you'll just absorb the company values.
That's the theory, but it completely ignores the fact that you can build an amazing culture remotely.
Right, like culture can only exist within the four walls of an office. Come on.
I know it's ridiculous. And think about it. Gallup's research shows that engagement, how connected you feel to your work, it's way more about your direct manager than where you're sitting.
So build a good relationship with your boss. That's more important than going back to the office.
Way more, yeah. And honestly, forcing everyone back could actually hurt culture. You end up excluding people who might thrive remotely.
Like caregivers, people who need more flexibility.
Exactly. Diversity and inclusion, those are key for a healthy culture.
Okay, last one for this section. Facilitating collaboration and teamwork. That's the big one, right?
Yeah, the idea is that being in the same room, it just sparks creativity.
Hmm.
And sure, sometimes that's true.
But there are so many great tools out there that let people collaborate from anywhere.
Exactly. And online collaboration can actually be more inclusive. You're bringing people together from all over.
And let's be real, not all work needs constant collaboration. Sometimes you need to buckle down, focus.
Deep work, yeah. Microsoft even did a study that showed hybrid models are the best for supporting both collaboration and defocus work.
The best of both worlds.
Exactly. It's all about finding the right balance.
So we've gone through a lot of the reasons companies are giving for this return to office push.
Yeah, a lot to unpack, that's for sure.
What's clear is that it's not as simple as it seems. There's a lot going on beneath the surface.
Definitely. And it's important for everyone to understand that so we can make smart decisions about the future of work.
We'll be back in a bit to talk about what happens when these mandates go wrong and what we can do about it. Stay with us. So we talked about the reasons behind these return to office mandates, and, well, some of them are kind of sus, right? But what about the fallout? What happens when companies try to force this without thinking about what employees actually need?
Well, the biggest risk, straight up, is people leaving.
Turnover.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, think about it. You're killing it, working remotely, hybrid, whatever works for you. You're happy, you're productive, and then suddenly, bam, back to the office 5 days a week.
Yeah, not a good look.
Nope. Especially now, when talented people have so many choices.
Companies who aren't flexible are going to get left behind.
Oh, for sure. And it's not just about individuals leaving. It messes with the whole team dynamic. Morale, productivity, even innovation takes a hit.
So it's like trying to save money, but you end up losing way more in the long run.
Exactly. And don't forget about reputation. In today's world, if a company gets known as the place that forces everyone back to the office, good luck finding good people.
Yeah, word travels fast, especially online.
Oh, yeah. And then what about the people who DO stay? The ones who don't have other options, or maybe they feel pressured to just go along with it.
Not a great situation for them either.
Nope. They're going to be resentful, less productive. It's like, hey, we trust you to manage your own time, so just clock in, clock out, be present. That's all we care about.
Like we said before, presenteeism over results.
Exactly. And it's so ironic, right? Like the article pointed out, thinking that just being back in the office is magically going to make people more productive.
As if the office is some kind of productivity potion. Sprinkle it on everyone.
It just doesn't work that way. People need to feel valued, trusted. They need to have some control over their work.
You can't force that, no matter where they are.
Nope. It's about creating an environment where people want to do their best.
Okay, so we've talked about how this can backfire for companies, but what about for employees? What's the impact on them?
Yeah, let's talk about that.
Well, for starters, there's the loss of flexibility. Work-life balance goes out the window.
You finally find a routine that works, you're managing everything, and then boom, got to go back.
Yeah, it's a huge adjustment and not a good one for a lot of people. More stress, anxiety, burnout. And for people with families, caregiving responsibilities, forget about it.
It also doesn't seem very fair, does it?
Nope. The people who can work remotely effectively, they're getting penalized just because they like to work differently.
Creates a real us versus them vibe, doesn't it?
Totally. And that's toxic for any work environment.
Another thing to think about is career development.
Oh, yeah, that's a big one.
If the company only cares about who's in the office and you're not there, well, good luck getting ahead.
You miss out on opportunities, recognition, promotions. It doesn't matter if you're getting stuff done, you're out of sight, out of mind. Talk about frustrating.
Seriously. So if your company's pushing this return to office thing, think about how it might affect your career. Be ready to speak up for yourself.
Okay, so if forced return to office is such a bad idea, what's the alternative? What should companies be doing instead?
Well, first off, we got to ditch the old way of thinking about work. This idea that it can only happen in one place at specific times, that's just outdated.
It's about results, right? Not just showing up.
Exactly. And that means changing how we think about it. Both managers, AD employees. Trust people to do their jobs, give them the freedom to work how they work best.
And that probably means investing in the right technology too, right?
Oh, absolutely. Communication platforms, collaboration tools, all that. But it's not just about the tech.
It's about the culture, the whole vibe.
Yeah, you got to create a culture that embraces flexibility, autonomy, clear expectations, good communication, regular feedback, all that good stuff.
It's about recognizing that work-life balance isn't a perk, it's essential.
Totally. And when companies support their employees' well-being, everyone wins.
The companies who get this, they're the ones who are going to attract the best talent, the ones who are going to be able to adapt and thrive in this new world of work.
It's not about going back to the old ways. It's about creating something new, something better.
Putting people first.
Absolutely.
So we've covered a lot in this part of the deep dive. The potential downsides of forcing people back to the office.
And it's not just about where people work. It's about how they work, how they're treated, what they value.
It's about creating a work environment that's both productive and humane.
Supporting the company's goals
Yeah.
and the well-being of the people who make it all happen.
It's complicated, that's for sure, but we can't ignore it. When we come back, we'll talk about what companies' A&D employees can do to create a more positive, productive work environment for the future. Stay with us.
All right, so we've talked about WHY companies doing this, what can happen when it goes wrong, but now let's get down to brass tacks. What can we actually do about it? Companies, employees, everyone. Well, first things first, companies got to ditch those blanket mandates, Stop assuming everyone's the same.
No more one size fits all, huh?
Exactly. Actually listen to what people need, what they want.
So surveys, right, actually gathering data.
Yeah. And not just surveys. Look at the productivity data from the past few years. See what's been working.
Because maybe some teams actually do better fully remote, and some need that hybrid setup.
Right. Figure out what works best for each team.
And speaking of data, the article mentioned the Stanford economist, Nick Bloom.
Oh yeah, Nick Bloom. He's done a ton of research on remote work.
His WFH research seems like a gold mine of information for companies trying to figure this out.
Oh, absolutely. Productivity, collaboration, well-being.
Yeah.
He's looked at it all.
Okay, so that's what companies can do. But what about employees? How do we make our voices heard?
Don't just sit there and take it, If you're not happy with the policy, speak a P.
But do it strategically, right?
Right. Don't just complain. Come prepared. Bring data. Show them how productive you've been working remotely.
If you've been crushing your targets, show them the numbers.
Exactly. And if your work-life balance has improved, that's important too.
Show them you're not just being stubborn, you're advocating for what helps you do your best work.
And be open to compromise. Maybe full-time remote isn't realistic, but a good hybrid model could work.
Finding that sweet spot, right?
Yeah, it's all about negotiation, finding solutions that work for everyone.
Chamorro Pre-Music also talked about this idea of measuring output, not just input.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
It's not about how many hours you're in the office, it's about the actual value you're creating.
Ditch the butts and seats mentality, for sure. Focus on results.
So clear goals, clear expectations, objective ways to measure success.
And managers got to shift their style too. Less micromanaging, more trusting people to get the job done.
It's not going to be the same for everyone, right? Every company, every team, every person is different.
Flexibility is key. The companies who could adapt, they're the ones who are going to win.
So we've gone through a lot today. From those not-so-great reasons behind these return-to-office mandates to what can happen if it goes wrong, and finally, what we can do about it.
The world of work has changed. We can't just go back to the old ways. It's time for something new.
Focusing on flexibility, well-being, and creating real value.
Building a work culture that actually works for everyone.
And for you, our listeners, as you navigate this whole return-to-office thing, remember, communication is key. Make data-driven decisions. And don't be afraid to fight for solutions that work for everyone. The future of work is in our hands. Let's make it a good one. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive.